The U.S. president says ceasefire talks with Iran could restart this week, halfway into a truce agreed 8th April to last 14 days. Donald Trump says delegations could reconvene over the next 2 days, likely in Islamabad, although there is as yet no confirmation from Tehran. Pakistani officials say they are pushing for a 45-day truce extension, although the word from Mr. Trump is that he does not expect a further draw-out of the existing 2-week ceasefire. Tehran, meanwhile, discussing de-escalation in a phone call with the UAE, the first since ties took a dive with Iranian attacks on Gulf states. The U.S. military, meanwhile, saying it has effected a full blockade of Iranian ports and, quote, completely halted economic trade. But Iranian media says Tehran is prepared to use alternative ports to bypass the U.S. blockade. Iran's military also warning it could block trade through the Red Sea. Another contentious issue in ceasefire talks, Israeli operations in Lebanon on Iran-backed Hezbollah. The IDF not letting up on that front either, despite Tuesday's meeting in Washington, the first in decades between Lebanese and Israeli officials. Our U.S. officials say that was a productive meeting, which could lead to more direct negotiations. Hezbollah, meanwhile, has opposed the talks, refusing to abide by any agreements that could emerge from discussions. And Jagruti Dave has been watching developments for CNN. She joins us live from Washington, D.C. Jagruti, what are the chances now of a return to ceasefire talks in Pakistan?
Well, Wei Su, President Trump is really talking up round 2 of these talks in Islamabad. In an interview with the New York Post, he's telling the reporter there, stay in Islamabad because there's things going to be happening there. He is effectively saying that with confidence that there could be another round of talks happening there. And he's contributing that to the work of his favourite Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, who's been brokering these talks. Now, as you mentioned, Tehran has not confirmed this, but there are also several sticking points already in existence between the US and Iran, notably the fate of the Strait of Hormuz with that US blockade and the prospect of Iran's uranium enrichment. The US wants a complete ban on Iran enriching uranium. Iran has offered an alternative proposal, a different time frame. Experts are saying that Iran needs to go back to its own people looking like it's had a victory of some kind, so a total ban wouldn't do that. These are just some of the sticking points. But of course, we have this blockade, which is quite significant in an attempt to pressure Iran to come to the table. We also understand that these talks, they were potentially going to be happening in Europe. But then the president went and told the New York Post that they are going to happen. He is confident in Islamabad. Again, we have to wait and see. But, this idea of the Strait of Hormuz is very important, but it's not really clear if these negotiations are going to happen now, because if you remember the JCPOA talks, they took 20 months of breakthroughs and breakdowns before any real conclusion came to pass on that issue.
Jagruti, also not clear is what's happening in terms of blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. What we have had is the U.S. Central Command, the commander of the U.S. Central Command saying that no ships have made it through, and other reports suggesting some ships, including Iran-linked ships, having made it through the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes, so what we're seeing is this blockade where you've got naval ships, fighter jets in the sky, thousands of US troops stationed in the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf trying to effect this blockade of Iran-linked ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. US Central Command has said that there's within 36 hours of this, there have been no ships that have got through. 6 ships have been turned around. and that is effectively a blockade of trade going in and out of Iranian ports. And that is the crucial thing. This is a blockade of Iran-linked ships in and out of Iran's ports. So some of the ships that have made it through the Strait, they weren't actually going into Iran's ports and in and out of Iran's ports. So some experts are saying, look, don't look at this as a complete cessation of movement through the Strait of Hormuz. This is an attempt to stop trade going in and out of Iranian ports, and seaborne trade accounts through the Strait of Hormuz is about 90% of Iran's economic trade there. So this is what the US is trying to do now. They're trying to pressure Iran to come to a deal, but analysts are also saying that they are trying to pressure China, who is a major trading partner with Iran, and by pressuring by putting this chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz, trying to pressure China to influence Tehran in these negotiations. Now, China has hit back, calling this blockade dangerous and irresponsible.
A dispute as well between Mr. Trump and an unlikely party, but the Pope, Mr. Trump, leveling another attack at the Pope on his social media site.
Yes, indeed. Two American leaders with two very different messages. Pope Leo has been talking about peace and the need for global peace. And this has elicited the ire of the president, who has seen this as sort of a very direct attack on Trump administration policies. Pope Leo has been more vocal than he has been in the past, perhaps more direct. And he has basically been speaking in Algeria and saying that God's heart has been torn apart from wars, violence, and lies. And the President Trump has been on social media saying, well, please somebody tell Pope Leo that, Iran has killed thousands of its own civilians, and that it is unacceptable for Iran to have nuclear weapons. Even J.D. Vance, who's a Catholic, the vice president, has weighed in saying that the Pope should be careful when he's talking about theology, essentially saying that the Pope is veering too close to political criticism and that he should be mindful about how he interprets theology. So this is really an escalation, as you say, on a very unlikely front, but just an indication of how Pope Leo's words appear to be, cutting at the heart of the Trump administration and that contrary messaging from these two American leaders.
Oh, thanks. Jagruti Dave looking at escalation, in fact, on several fronts, reporting for CNN live from Washington, D.C.